So I don't know about you, but I've noticed in the last few days a drastic deficiency in my hydration. I wonder how I figured that out. Maybe it was the headache I was getting when I was just jogging 400 yards with you. Whatever it was, I'm like, why am I hungover?
You know,
right now?
weren't you like a ultra? You know, didn't you introduce yourself to me as like,
Keyword
oh, yeah,
were.
I run fucking ultras.
No. I did is maybe what I had said, but I've discovered that I have some horrible friends, and those friends discover the worst things about me. Some of my bad habits are discovered in those friendships.
Yeah,
Potentially in the morning when I'm working out with them and I want to throw up all over the place.
those guys.
Well, look, why don't we do this? Because I live amongst a world of, I'm a former veteran, but I live in a completely different world than you, right? From a professional perspective, but we all started from the same spot in some respects, right? So do me a favor, there are, believe it or not, some people that aren't going to know the man, the myth, Dakota Meyer. So why don't you introduce yourself to some of these folks?
Oh yeah, so I'm Dakota Meyer. I served in the Marine Corps from 2006 to 2010. Gosh, just seems so long ago. And then I was a sniper, operated in Iraq and Afghanistan. So Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom. Yeah, I grew up in Kentucky, and here I am now. Now I met you, and like here we are. You know what I mean? Like
You lost a bet.
by far the most. Like if I look at all the things in my life, I mean, I've had kids,
Kentucky.
I've divorces, like engaged, and honestly, the most life-changing thing that's happened to me is meeting you.
Shut the hell up. Right. Well, I can tell you this.
Sat in the room with drank beer with the president, but again, the most life-changing thing I've had happen to me is you.
So now I'm 1 degree of separation from who gave you your Medal of Honor? Was that Obama?
It was President Obama.
Okay, but which president could throw him back better, Trump or Obama?
You know, I mean, the only one that drank with me. So Trump doesn't drink.
Did you ever drink with Clinton?
No, so he doesn't drink either. Like,
I'm listening.
and neither does President Bush. But President Obama, we had a beer in the Rose Garden the night before I got the medal, and so at that time, and I don't know if other presidents did this or not, but they made their own beer in the White House. So like they brewed their own beer.
Like as a competition?
No, I think it was just like maybe I don't know if that was something he enjoyed, or I don't know if maybe it's tradition or whatever. I don't know enough about it to like really like speak too far into it in depth. But we drank what was called the White House Honey Ale, and you know he did
you get all jazz handsy after like 2 or 3 of those?
So he didn't. He didn't drink so we went back there and we're going to have a beer, and so like we go in the Oval Office and I walk in, how are you, sir? And we walk out back into the Rose Garden and we sit down, and somebody brings us both a beer. They open it up, pour it in like this chilled glass, it was really good, and it was a light beer, and so we're drinking. I killed mine.
Sure you did.
And he's like got 50% left. And he looks at me, we're just having like a casual conversation, and he looks at me and he goes, hey, like, Dakota, is it gonna like offend you if I don't finish my beer?
And you said yes.
And I said, look, sir, that's a man's decision. And he said, well, let me tell you why. And I was like, okay. He's like, look, as soon as I leave here, I've got to go give a speech. And he goes, so that's why I'm not going to finish it. And I looked at him and I said, well, President Obama, like, to be honest with you, before I give my speeches, I drink 10 or 12. And he just
to get the edge off.
He just died laughing. But
was he cool?
Yeah, like, look, they're to be honest with you, like, they're all cool, right? Like behind the scenes, like they're all cool, right? Okay. Like nice guys. You don't become president
by being just an asshole.
By being an asshole, right? Like it's a, like you talk about the most intimate job on the planet is the president of the United States, right? And it's like, when you think about it, the president of the United States he's on your TV at your kitchen table. He's in your household. I mean, he's literally everywhere.
It's on the news every day.
On the news every day, right? And so, you know, to not be likable, it ain't gonna last very long.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
But I'm sure there's a lot of people within orbit of them that you have to deal with too that are probably less enjoyable to be around, like their staff. You know, I'm sure staff has to run with a sharp sword.
But I mean, they do, right? Like they have to run with a sharp sword. I mean, everybody's coming at them, right? And you talk about in that position, like, I mean, you know what it's like in your position of how hard it is to decide, like, are people hanging out with you
Good
because of what you can give them, or like, you know what I mean? Imagine getting to that level.
Sure, where everybody only has one thing they want. Yeah, everyone has a need. I'm sure even at your level, you're probably fatigued with the requests of things, right? But for those of you, those that are listening, that this podcast is really focused hard on what we do within the data center industry. I mean, you and I have had multiple conversations over however many periods of time where I've tried to explain, you know, what we build in terms of you know, the home for the cloud, so to speak, and how veterans, I don't know any other industry outside of a paramilitary, like you're a first responder. There's a lot to unpack with your background that I want to help explain to others, and how there's a lot of overlapping offsets between you and I. Do you agree?
Yeah. Oh, tons.
And how that's not very uncommon from the fellow Marines that you serve with and the fellow sailors that I serve with, and so on and so forth between, you know, soldiers and airmen.
I mean, it's all the same, right? And like, you know, what you do, which I'm not gonna sit here and pretend to know in depth of what you do.
Sure.
But all you do is the same thing, just in a different atmosphere, right? I mean, it's you know what I mean. It's the same when you go back to it. Like it makes sense as to why you're so good at it and why you have veterans on your team, because, you know, when you talk about what a veteran is and what a veteran does, you know, they are just ordinary people who are very creative and who can think outside the box, and they are you know, they're result oriented, right? Instead of getting emotionally tied to something or this or that. You know, it's about, hey, like, how do we make this fit in this, right? And so, I mean, you take, you know, whether you served in combat or not, that's irrelevant. You have to do what the nation needs you to do at anywhere. You have to be able to do whatever you need to do anywhere on the face of the planet, right? And so, yeah, it makes sense why what you do is, you know, very, very compatible with veterans leaving the military, coming to a space like that.
I think the thing, I mean, we talk about how even each branch, I mean, even us, you know, like every branch of service is like a new vertical or industry of business altogether. Do you agree? Like Marines are designed and built from day one to minute one way different than you do sailors, and way different than the Army does, and the Air Force and Coast Guard and so on, right?
Yeah, but for reason. I mean, you couldn't. I mean, imagine taking a Marine the way they train us and putting them in a submarine.
I think that there's
the same person wouldn't fit.
Well, I think they also gravitate to, right? So like you know, kids graduate from college and they're trying to figure out what they want to do based on whatever major they had. And they're trying to figure out, do I want to get into automotive industry or manufacturing, retail, high tech, finance, healthcare, et cetera. And for us, like we started with, like, let me back this train up, because you're from Kentucky. And what generation was your lineage military?
My grandfather was a Marine.
Okay, so did you have a call to duty to serve early on? Was it like, hey, it's in the family, this is the family business, like
I didn't
farming?
even really know anything about it.
So at what point did you decide, hey, I'm going to be a Marine? You were in high school.
Yeah, I know I was in high school. I mean, honestly, I went to the Marine Corps the day that I met the recruiter, right?
But like junior, okay, the recruiter came to school.
Yeah, my senior year, yeah. And so, but it was because I didn't know anything about it. Right, I'd never thought about it. Like, I didn't know anything about it.
So start with that, because how the hell do you not know anything about something, and the next thing you know, you're like the youngest sniper in Marine Corps? You know, so how do you go from my senior year, I meet a recruiter, I think I want to join the Marines, to I'm joining the Marine Corps, and I'm not even looking at these other branches. Like, how were you drawn to that? And that's what I'm trying to draw back to, because this podcast will make it to the bases. It'll be on Camp Pendleton, just like it will be in Norfolk Naval Base and at Fort Hood, right up the road, right? But people gravitated and they just discovered, hey, man, this is what I want to do. Out of all the branches, this is what I'm going to do. Collectively, they're all serving the same purpose. We all take the same oath to protect and defend the same thing. up into and including the same cost, right?
But nobody does it. Like you don't join for the oath, right? Like as much as you think that's what it is, it's not. It's really the challenge.
The individual challenge.
Yeah, the individual challenge, right? It's doing something greater, you know. And I always talk about, you know, the thing that probably fueled me to serve, which was by far the best recruiting tool for the military and all first responders, was 9/11.
Okay, so you were in high school at 9/11. What year?
No, I was in 8th grade.
Okay.
And so, yeah, like, you know, I mean, I remember those towers falling. I remember going home to my grandparents' house at night and
Being worried, being
worried.
scared.
Yeah. And then I just remember seeing like how fucking proud people were.
September
of
12th
America,
was a
right?
great day.
Yeah. So that's what I say all the time is like, I don't want another 9/11, but I'd give anything for another 9/12.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, I was your typical high school student. I was going to go try to walk on somewhere and play football, and you know, one day a recruiter came in and was like,
And you're like, that's it.
well, I started asking him a lot of smart aleck questions, right? I was like, oh, what's that on your you know, your left breast pocket and this and that? And he's like, oh, it's my shooting badge. I'm like, oh, what? I mean, I hunt deer. Like, that's cool, right? The guy just got back from Fallujah, and
And you haven't
finally,
seen the ball since kickoff. He's talking about real world shit.
yeah,
now.
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
17 years old, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And he looks at me and finally he goes, hey, what are you gonna do when you get out of high school? And I said, well, I'm gonna probably go play football somewhere. I'm gonna go to college, right? And he goes, well, that's good because you'd never make it as a Marine. And so I
Nailed it.
yeah. So I walked off and it just fucking started eating at me, right? And I went back to him and I said, you know what, I'll join today.
It's the smartest recruiter ever.
Well, you know, the Marine Corps, like they say, if you want a salesperson, find a Marine recruiter.
Because they go reverse negative hard, right?
Yeah, they know they know their demographic.
Yeah.
And so I went back to my classroom and it just eating at me. And I'll never forget, like, it's look, I believe you are where you're supposed to be, right? Like, I don't think there's I don't believe in coincidences in life. I just don't. And it's kind of crazy because that day before I'd gone to lunch, I was in a home ec class. You know, like they had like the sinks all around the outside, and
Yeah.
you know, you had the baby and all that thing. You had to put the key in the back and shit like that. I still haven't found the key for my kids yet. And this teacher, her name was Janie, and she hated me, like hated me. And so I borrowed this black hair band off of a girl that was sitting next to me. And so what I did is Janie would come in every single time she smoked at lunch, and she'd come in every single time and she'd wash her hands at this same sink. So you know, like that little sprayer, like you spray off your dishes with, but like they used to not be with the nozzle; they'd be next to it.
So I know exactly what you did.
I took
I've
that
done
black
this.
hairband. It was a black.
And then when they turn on the sink, it just hits them.
Oh, when she turned on the sink. So I did that, and you know, I gone to lunch. And, you know, I'm in there and, you know, I had this conversation with this recruiter, and then we go back and we're sitting in there, and here comes Janie coming in, and I always played on my phone. She hated it. You know that song, Janie's Got a Gun?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You know, back when you could do that shit in school, right?
Oh, yeah. You can't
And
joke like
no.
you could never be what we were probably in high school today. You'd be in prison.
I used to skin deer in the ag class. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, in Kentucky, though,
Yeah.
you know, that's.
we grew at my school, we grew tobacco.
Yeah, why wouldn't you? What could go wrong?
We grew it and we would sell it to Philip Morris for us to be able to pay for us to go on trips and stuff.
I think it's a genius idea.
So anyways, I had done that, and Janie comes in and, you know, I'm playing the song. She's like, stop it. You know what I mean? So she turns on the thing and she can't figure out how to shut it off. And dude, shit's going everywhere. And she doesn't even turn around. And she's like, Dakota, get out of my class.
She knew it was you before she even say anything?
So
That's
I don't,
funny. You're
to
a
be
bad
honest,
person.
like looking back, like I don't think that's how our judicial system works. Like I think you're innocent until proven guilty. And so I don't know that she did a thorough investigation.
Yeah, you're a victim,
But
for sure.
I'm a victim, yeah.
I see it.
So, but anyways, so I went back to the lunchroom, and I had this spot that was designated for me so that my the assistant principal, he always did all the discipline action stuff. So he had a spot and a chair set out there for me so he could look out his window and know that I was there, but I wouldn't interrupt what he's going on. So I'm sitting in my chair, you know, just waiting to see what's going to happen today. And I go back to this recruiter and I say, you know what? I'll make you a deal. I said, if I can go sign up today,
I'll do it.
I'll join.
Shut up.
And he said, get your transcript. He goes, you probably won't make it. I can promise you a tryout though. And so I went and got my transcript. And this was when I could sign myself out. I just left school.
How old were you?
17. I didn't tell my dad. That's how it was, right? And so I just left, got in the car with this recruiter, drove up to Elizabethtown. My dad has no clue. And I'm like, well, what job am I going to do? And he looks at me, he goes, man, I don't do this for anybody. He goes, I got limited spots on this. He goes, but I'll tell you this. I'm going to hand you this spot because you're so smart that this is a perfect job for you. And I said, man, what is it? And he's like, listen,
truck detail. Don't
tell anybody, but I'm gonna give you this spot. It's only today if you sign. I was like, what is it? He's like, infantry. And I said, I was like, man, that's like.
Let me check your pulse first.
That's
awesome.
You
could do it.
He's like, we only give these spots to our smartest guys.
Yeah, for sure.
And I was like, yeah, man, that's me. And so first time in my entire life that anyone had ever called me smart. And
there was no red flags.
None at all. So I go up there, sign, and I've got him convinced that, because this was
he's not hustling you. You're hustling him now.
Yeah, I've got him convinced that my dad is fine with it. So the only thing, we sign all the paperwork, do all the stuff.
Just need dad's signature.
And now we got dad's signature. So he's driving me back. And I remember it's a red car, red 4-door sedan. I remember the whole thing. So we pulled into the driveway and we're waiting for my dad to come home. My dad, when you talk about a man that works his ass off, just incredible, right? So he comes home that night and I'm sitting at the table with this guy in uniform. And I'll never forget, he probably had a long day and he comes in and he's like, it was spring. So it's the busiest time of the year for my dad was spring. And he come in and my dad was shaking his head and he's like,
not today.
He's like, Dakota, what have you done now? And now it's, to my dad's credit, it's not the first time my dad's came home and someone in uniform has been sitting next to me.
Okay.
Right. And so I was like, Dad, check it out. I need your signature on this. And I've decided I want to go to the Marine Corps. And he's like, Dakota, you made a lot of hasty decisions in life. He goes, have you really thought about this? I said, yeah, Dad, I watch Top Gun every night. And he's like,
right.
That's the Navy.
Yeah.
I was like, same thing.
It's basically the same department in the Navy.
No, he's not. He's like, no, it's not. And so he goes on, and my dad's listening. And so my dad probably still has the first penny he's ever made, right? He's that tight. And I knew, and this was my go-to I said, Dad, I just don't want to go to college and waste your money. And I think he had his signature done by the time I even finished that signature. But by the time waste your money.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah,
and so, then I left for boot
No
camp.
other father too, probably. I mean, he obviously loves you because most fathers would be like, is this for real? Sign it real quick before they
change your mind.
Yeah. Why would you ever try to ask a kid who's going to join the military? are you sure? You'd be
when you ask,
no one's sure.
No. But when you ask him, he'd tell you that he knew that if he didn't do it,
you were going to do it no matter what.
That I was going to do it no matter what. So I left for boot camp June 18th, 2006.
2006. So what was happening by then? Where were we in conflict then? Were we in both Afghanistan and
we were still
Iraq?
Yeah, we were in both, but Iraq was hot then, right? So I went to boot camp.
Where is that Lejeune? Is that MCRD San Diego?
No, MCRD Paris Island.
Got you.
Went to Paris Island, and then went to Camp Geiger, North Carolina.
How long is your guys' boot camp, by the way? Is it 10 or 12
weeks?
12 weeks. So it's a whole nother month and more. Is that?
Yeah.
Is that because we do long division faster than you guys, or because you guys need to do more push-ups? Which is it somewhere in the middle, maybe?
I mean, I just think that I don't know.
So you guys go for a whole nother month than most of the branches. I don't think a lot of people realize that, but that's 4 extra weeks doesn't seem a lot in a long enough timeline. But when you're getting when you have drill instructors around you, it's an eternity. You know, an extra 4 weeks is almost another 50% on top of what we were doing. You know,
Yeah.
that's a lot. And then, at what point did you decide, or how did you become a
So I went infantry. So then you go to your MOS school for 8 weeks. So for infantry, and then
Where's that at in Lejeune as well?
that was just like north of Lejeune. So that was in Camp Geiger. So I went there for 8 weeks, and then was stationed in Hawaii. And so went out to Hawaii.
Did you pick that? Was that your dream sheet?
No, that was the last place that I wanted to go. And so stationed in Hawaii, flew out to Hawaii, got there. The unit that I came into, so one of the busiest, the highest op tempo was third Marines, right?
Or they headquartered out of Hawaii?
Out of Hawaii, yeah, third Marines. So you had 1, 3, 2, 3, and 3, 3, right? And so we got there, and I became part of 3rd Battalion, 3rd Marines Kilo Company. They had just gotten back from deployment, so like they backfill every time after deployment. And they lost a lot of guys. I mean,
Iraq?
Yes. So they've been in the triad, the Haditha triad. So they lost a lot of guys. I mean, they had a hard deployment and just a lot of combat, like a lot of combat. And so I became part of Kilo Company, and then I was there I got there like October, maybe November. I can't remember. And then like January, February timeframe came out, and so snipers needed to backfill their spots. So they do a selection assessment. And
At
so
infantry school?
no, within your
In
unit.
your unit. Okay.
And so like you can try out for it. So I tried out for it, made it, got on, and then like we were supposed to just be like our first deployment, because we were going to Iraq. So our first deployment was just to be like security for the snipers, right? So like you would know sniper skills, but you wouldn't be a school trained sniper, because at any point in time in the Marine Corps, there's less than 300 school trained snipers in the entire Marine Corps, and so
Really?
yeah, it's one of the schools that has one of the highest attrition rates, and so.
And your guys' sniper school teaches a lot of the other branches snipers too, right?
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of them come to us unless it's SOCOM, right?
Where's the sniper training for you guys? Is it East Coast? Is it West Coast?
So they had an East Coast, West Coast, and at that time they had a school in Hawaii.
Okay.
So so we went, and they were all known for something different, right? Like Hawaii was shooting, everywhere else
Stalking or
stalking,
something.
shit like that. And so I went to. So I was supposed to go on this deployment, and then they came to us, and I guess a spot had opened up at sniper school, and they said, "Hey, look, like Dakota, you can either go home on pre-deployment leave, or you can go to sniper school." And I was like, "I'm going to sniper school."
Yeah, why would you go
Right?
home?
Like why not? Like I wanted to like build my career up. Like I wanted, so. It was an easy decision. So I got to go to sniper school and became one of the youngest school trained snipers in the Marine Corps at that time. I graduated in July, and then I turned around and left for Iraq like a week and a half later.
No shit.
Yeah. So we were part of the surge.
Okay.
Whenever they surged up in 2000.
What year was that?
2007.
8? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Mattis was over there probably around then, right?
I don't know. Maybe. I'm sure he was. I don't know.
Okay, but he was kind of your guys' quarterback, Mad Dog Mattis, at that time, or did you ever meet him?
Yeah, I know Mattis.
Good guy?
I know Mattis real well. Yeah.
Good
guy?
Yeah. There was a book, audiobook from him, Call Sign Chaos.
Call Sign Chaos, yeah.
Great book, actually.
So the guy that wrote that book, Bing West, is also the one that wrote my book.
Which one? Your first book?
Yep. Into the Fire.
Into the Fire. So that's the one, like you just gave me a signed copy of that I gave my son to take back to the Citadel with him. But so that one tells your story, right?
That tells, the story of the battle of Ganjigong.
And listen, some people have listened to you on Joe Rogan. I know you've been on Rogan a few times. You've been on Jocko. I listened to you tell your story for the first time long before I met you on Jocko.
Yeah.
A couple years ago. So for some of those that don't know, Cliff Note version, maybe of some of the things. This story may be hard for you to tell. It's one of the hardest days in your life, but I know that it inspires a lot of people at the same time. So only what you're comfortable
Yeah,
with.
so we were like, so we went. So the time frame was, so I went to Iraq. I ended up in a house in Iraq, got bit on my right hand by a spider, and had severe nerve damage. Like lost all movement in my last 3 fingers.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, and almost got medically. I got sent home. I had 2 surgeries in Iraq, and then flown
From a spider bite?
to Lunchstall. Yeah, I was flown to Lunchstall, and then I was in Lunchstall for
Is that
about.
Germany?
Yeah, it's like the big hospital we
Yeah.
had there, and I was in the hospital there for. I don't know. I was in Lunchville for about 20, 30 days. And then they flew me back to the States and I was in occupational therapy. Just trying to get my
That would
hand back.
suck, huh?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I thought that I was going to be kicked out of
Done.
the Marine Corps. And so I ended up finally getting my
How,
hand back.
how long was your hand jacked for?
Man, I probably got it to come around February. So I got sent home. So probably about 5 months.
So you get 5 months of recovery from a spider in in Iraq just to recover from your hand. Were you full recovery?
Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
So yeah, I got sent home, and then got sent home, and then ended up. So the platoon came back. I ended up going to had the opportunity to go to Mountain Sniper School. Became a mountain sniper as well, which is just like another, just another school. And then I had my own team. So I became in charge of my own team, and kind of just pushed that way, right? I had five guys under me, trained the shit out of them, and then we all trained it hard, like
Stateside together?
stateside, yeah. And then we were getting ready to go back to Iraq, and our gunny comes in, and he's like, "Hey, look, we need 5 volunteers to go to Afghanistan." And I was like, "For what?" And we didn't know, just we need 5 bodies. And you know how it works. Like, you can either start raising your hand or they're going to start picking, right?
Right.
So I was like, I'm in, because I knew that at that point, I don't know if you remember in the news, whenever the news, it kind of shifted from Iraq and then, oh yeah, hey, reminder, we're still in Afghanistan.
Yeah, I remember.
Right. So it had kind of started getting hot in Afghanistan. So I was like, I'm in, because I knew that was going to be the best shot for us to get some action. And so I ended up going over and being part of this, what's called an embedded training team. And so the embedded training team is just made up of basically various ranks and skill sets, as wide of a array as they can get. And then they embed them with the Afghan National Army. So therefore that, you can try to, it's kind of like a train the trainer style aspect, right? The theory is that we operate with them. We train them on everything from weapon systems to Humvees to, to logistics. And then hopefully when we leave, they can sustain
They can
it
carry the
themselves,
load,
right?
yeah.
Now, obviously, spoiler alert, we know how that ended up.
Yeah.
So a unique mission though. And so I ended up meeting a guy. So I was put on a team with Gunny Kennefic, Lieutenant Johnson, and Doc Layton. And so they were all, one was a corpsman, Kennefic was an admin guy, and then Lieutenant Johnson was a comm guy. And I mean, I'd gone on more deployments than them, right? I'd been on one. And so I was kind of like, for the team, was the tactician. So like, like I was in charge of weapon systems, like anything like that, right? Like that was kind of my role with the Afghans, was anything that had to do with mission planning, anything that had to do with weapon systems and training them up. So like I was part of, when I got there, we were transitioning them over to NATO weapons, from Soviet weapons to NATO weapons. And so
Now, where is there, by the way?
in Afghanistan.
But what part? I'm sorry.
So we were up in what's called the Kunar province.
Okay.
So if people know the Lone Survivor. So I was the valley that Marcus was trying to get to.
Oh, no
right?
kidding.
So like he was trying to get to our valley, right? And up in the Kunar province in a place called Asmar. So just east of we were between the Korangal Valley and
That's where I was
Pakistan
going to ask, where you
border.
were relative to Korangal.
Yeah, so we were east of it.
That's like some of the most kinetic shit on earth at that time, right?
Yeah, you consider one of the most dangerous places on earth.
Yeah.
Right. And so we get up there, and it kind of, I'll never forget, we arrived at our base, and, we're doing the left seat, right seat handoff of the team that's leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, yeah, we've been in one gunfight in 9 months. And I was like, fuck.
This is going to be boring then?
I was like, this is going to suck.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to suck. Right. And it was kind of unique. Right. And,
Were you the same size as the team you were relieving?
Yeah.
Okay, so there wasn't like they changed tactics because they saw a smaller element there.
No. So, no, same thing, right? And so we were training these guys and started going on missions and I'll never forget the first gunfight we got into was a couple days before August 20th. Because August 20th was the elections of that year of 2009. And a couple days before, man, I'll never forget. I was standing in the me and Kennefic were standing in this like little hooch, like a little like it's like a little like a shower trailer, right? It had showers behind you, and then you had sinks in front. And we're standing there brushing our teeth, and I'm like, "Is that fucking bullets?"
Oh, it's going
so
off.
I opened the door, and it's like sure as shit. Like I mean, they're getting down, and I was like, "Hell yeah!" So I sprint back into we had this like bunker because it was wide open and they had the high ground around.
That was like you guys were all in these little bowls. It seems like everyone.
Yeah, it was stupid.
Yeah,
stupid. And so like we ran this bunker, and I'm like, "Fuck, I'm gonna run in here and grab my shit," because all my shit was in, all my gear was in my
bunkhouse.
In our bunkhouse, right? So I run in there and grab my shit, throw it on, and I run back to the bunker, and they're all still just sitting in there. And I'm like, hey, it's go time, right?
It's time to return some of this stuff.
So I go up and I could hear the fire was coming from the east. And so I knew that like we needed to get on that east right there and make sure they weren't going to flank us, right? And so I moved over and started hammering these guys. And these guys, they had moved in pretty close because nobody was pushing them pretty hard. And like, dude, they were launching these RPGs from like this low ground. And so anyways, it started kinetic. That's what kicked it off. And then, I mean, it got pretty kinetic.
So you guys were like that for a bit then. It seems like you guys were the opposite of the unit that you guys relieved because they had one gunfight and you guys are already in the thick, right?
Yeah, we were probably in 70 to 80 gunfights in about 5 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, that lasted over an hour.
And then what would be what would bring those things to close? Like you guys run out of ammo or you guys not designed, your units weren't designed for, something that was sustainable longer than an hour?
No, we would go out. No, what would stop it is we would start moving on them, right?
Okay.
Yeah, no, we when they targeted the base, like they usually ran out of ammo, right? Like the worst place to attack us is on our base, right? Like that's where all of our shit is.
Right.
And any time out in, majority of time, to be honest, like we would call air. Like that's the best part about fighting for the United States of America is that we dominate the airspace. And so, so that's how it would usually end is air would come in.
People don't realize that that's the superiority in all battle is having air.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you guys would just call in
helicopters. Yeah. We had fast movers. Like, I mean, we were, it was nothing. Kiowas, we used Kiowas a lot. What they did is they took these Kiowa helicopters, which are intelligence helicopters, gathering helicopters, and they would throw these pods on them, these rocket pods on them. And dude, those
Kiowa, like Hellfires type?
Yeah, Hellfires, Flechettes, like all of them. And like, dude, they would come in. They also had a chain gun on the side. I think it was a chain gun. But anyways, they'd have maybe I don't know what they had, but they had some type of direct fire weapon. And dude, they would come in. They'd have red phosphorus. They'd have all of it, right? Like they would come in. They'd fuck people up.
So how long were you over there before you guys got into the situation that got us here? So
we got into a gunfight that Sunday, which would be September 6th. And
of 09?
Of 09. And it was a bad gunfight. Like it was bad. We actually sat down that day and just really talked about, hey, like it was probably the first eye opener of like we're not all going home, right? I'll never forget, we sat on this back area that we had behind our little bunkhouse, and we kind of just talked about like, hey, what to do if one of us gets killed? Like, what do we want, right? It was like, hey, like, take the emotions out of it, take the fucking fun out of it, but like, we're not all going home, and like, how do we deal with this, right? And then we get a call the next day, and we were told we're going to go run this mission We needed to come down to the main headquarters because we were all part of a big team. And then we were dispersed out into these other fobs, right? In like little 4-man elements. And so they said, hey, we're running a big op, and they needed us to come down and be part of it. They wouldn't tell us, obviously, over the phone and shit, right? So we went down there, and they ended up calling us back, and they're like, no, it's going to be moved off to the next Sunday night. They called us, and then they called us, said, no, don't come down Sunday night, come down Monday night, and because we're going to go Tuesday. It got pushed off, which is weird, right? Which is anytime an op gets pushed, it's very fucking dangerous. Especially whenever you're working in the environments that we are, right? When you're working when you're working with, it's one thing to work with when you're working with all conventional forces, but when you're working alongside locals, like it's a very dangerous thing to let them know a plan and then push it off a day, right?
Because then they'll tell everybody.
Yeah. Right. Or you don't know who's working you, right? Mm-hmm. So, but it's part of it. I mean, it's part of the game. And so we went down there and got this whole brief. It's going to be a 90-man patrol, going in. Long story short, like the Ganjigal people, this place called Ganjigal Valley, and they wanted to renounce themselves from the Taliban and start supporting the government. How could we help them with security? Because their valley was a real corridor for the enemy that used it for running drugs and weapons, and it was a
spy route. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so when I'm listening to this brief, so I did a bunch of reading before we went over there. I wanted to understand the environment, right? The Russians had been there forever. There's plenty of books. So I read this book, The Bear Went Over the Mountain. And in this, I remembered this valley because I couldn't pronounce the word, right? So Ganjigal. And I remembered it. And I remembered that every time the Russians went in this valley, they would kill all the Russians and they'd put their heads on stakes outside the village to show that this is what happens when you come here. That's how evil
like Dracula stuff, yeah.
Yeah. So I was very, very,
aware,
just, uneasy about this plan. And so I brought up, waited till the end of the brief, and I brought up a few issues that I had with the plan, right? Like, number one, why were we going into this valley and we're going to have 8 different elements, over 8 different moving elements on one frequency? Didn't make sense to me, right? I thought it was a terrible plan. Second thing was, why were they going to go walk in by foot and not bring the vehicles behind them so that you have your powerful guns and you have armor? They wanted to go in clandestine.
During the day?
Well, I mean, how about this? 90-man patrol, right? And then the other factor was they kept saying that we had air on 15-minute strip alert, but they talked about it like it was guaranteed, and that's not what strip alert is. And it was coming from Jalalabad, and I was uncomfortable with it.
Because you knew you needed at least an hour and a half? Or?
Well, because I knew that if there was somewhere a tick with a higher priority, you weren't getting air.
Yeah. Right.
So it's not like you don't
guarantee
go in there.
Air.
Don't go in there and don't go in there with the mindset that you have air on station, right? So, anyways, I was told I'm an E4 in the United States Marine Corps. What do I know about mission planning? And so their solution was, instead of fixing this, I just wasn't going to go in with my team, and they replaced me with a guy named Gunnery Sergeant Johnson, and they were going to punish me by sitting me at...
To make you watch because you didn't buy it on the program?
100%. And so, which is fine, right? I mean, that's they gotta listen. They gotta live with what they did, and I get to live with what I did, right? And so, I'll never forget that morning we were going in, and the plan that I did, like, we had that plan the night before. That was the plan. Shit hits a fan, get a truck up in there as far as we can, and my guys are going to meet me at the road. That's all I gave a fuck about. And so that morning we're driving in, and it was kind of unique that we, like, usually when we're going on a mission, we're talking about the mission the whole time. Like, hey, okay, where's this call for fire target? Where's this objective rally point? Like all this, right? Like trying, like just rehearsals. Dude, that morning we got in the truck, we never talked about the mission. All we talked about was going home. And it was unique, right? And I look back on that conversation. It's kind of crazy. We're just coming up with these crazy ideas of what we are going to do when we came home. And we get in there and stop, and it's pitch black. Kennefic, they all get out, right? And Kennefic gets out and he says, Meyer, I'll see you on the flip side.
Mm-hmm.
And they went off into the dark, right? And I was watching with thermals, and you start seeing people run up towards the hills.
They were getting ready to take the higher ground?
Yeah, they'd taken high ground, getting up there ready to fight. And so the team got to the village, all of them. So my team was in the front of this patrol, and they got to the village, and immediately, as soon as they got to the village, all the lights in the village shut off simultaneously.
Oh, so it's coordinated.
100%. And so they started fighting. And, in any gunfight, like, there's a lot of emotions in the beginning. It's like any problem in life. You get emotional, and it's like, okay, well, what do we got to do to fucking fix it, right? Mm-hmm. So same thing with this. And gunfighting, it's not complicated. Where are they at? Where are we at? And what do we have to get rid of them, right? It's pretty much that simple. And so I hear my team, the normal fighting, the hectic, rockets. They had everything. And all of a sudden, I hear Lieutenant Johnson come over the radio, and he starts calling for artillery, which is normal, right? And what he was trying to do was place artillery between him and the village so that it would give him a blanket that they could exfil.
Yeah.
And he gave this grid, and the response he got back was, it's too close to the village. And so what we didn't know was about 30, 45 days before this, Stanley McChrystal had put in a rule of engagement over there that said you couldn't fire munitions within a certain radius of a village unless you had gone, ready for this? Unless you had gone to the village and made sure that only enemy combatants were in the village.
That happens never.
How do you do that?
Yes.
So anyways, I hear that, and they said it's too close to the village. And Lieutenant Johnson came over the radio, and he said, if you don't give me these rounds right now, we're going to die. And the response that came back was, we'll try your best. And so at that point, I knew
they weren't getting the support they needed.
Nobody's helping us.
Yeah.
Like, nobody's fucking helping us, right? And as much as you think we're all on the same team, which we are, like, when it comes down to boots on the ground, we're all on the same team. But when it comes to higher ups in the military, the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, like, that, it's like you think they're fucking competing.
Yeah.
Right. And so this is the epitome of it. And so they shut down all call for fire for us, which there's reasons for it. And there's, you can look either way, right? I understand part of it, and I don't some of it. So then I looked at Rodriguez Chavez, and I said, we got to go do something. And he's like, let's go. And so I called in over the radio and requested 3 or 4 times to bring the truck in. My idea was, I'm going to bring this Humvee in with a 50 cal, and if I could shove it as far as I could up in it, I could break the enemy and then get my team, let my team exfil, right? And if nothing else, I could draw the fire while they all got out, right?
It was armored Humvee.
Yeah. Yeah. And and even if they got us, at least everybody else got out, right?
Yeah.
And so each time we were told, no, don't bring it in, get off the radio. And so finally I shut my radio off. We switched over to another frequency, talked to Valdez, and we just drove in. And as soon as we came around this curve to go up this village, it was like terraces all the way up it. That's how they build over there. And we were on a riverbed. The road was in a riverbed. It's probably like 100 meters wide. And it's
how dark is this?
No, it's all
Sunrise?
light now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all light now. And so we come around this turn, and the terrace was higher than the truck. And so we come around this turn, and we hit down in the riverbed, and dude, there's bodies everywhere. Like, when I tell you, like, bodies just scattered everywhere. And like on the first trip in, these Afghan soldiers, like, they got excited to see, like, oh, help's here. And dude, they were getting up, and they were trying to sprint towards my truck
and getting shot,
and they were just getting mowed down, like, just literally like mowed down.
Yeah.
And so, and the enemy was coming and trying to run at the truck. So my driver would run them over. If they got in front of him, he would hit as many of them as he could. And then I would shoot them with the 50 cal on the left or right, and then with my M4 if they got under the 50 cal, because it would only traverse down so far. And so we did this for 4 or 5 trips, and finally on the 5th trip, like ended up locating my team, and they'd all been executed, and they'd just been overran, and all their gear was stripped off of them and everything, and we got them out, and went back to work.
What happened after that?
So put them in a body, we put them in body bags and sent them home. And then I went over to my Afghan soldier side because, to me, like a lot of people don't understand, they look at these Afghan soldiers as if they're just
fodder,
dispendable or, expendable. Right. And to me, like, I mean, I didn't lose, I didn't lose 4 guys that day. I lost 10.
Because you're Afghan.
Because my Afghan guys, we lost 6 guys from our platoon. And, I went over and I made sure they were taken care of, made sure they had the resources they needed to fix their wounded, right? That we flew them out. Made sure that we also did the same respects. Like the Army was so grateful or so helpful on, they let us put our Afghan soldiers' bodies in the freezers with ours. Well, ours flew out, but like let us put them in there until the families came and got them. Which was good. And so, made sure that that they knew that I was taking care of them before that it wasn't just like, hey, you guys figure your own shit out. We're America, right? We already took care of ours. Like we made sure that they were taken care of. And then I went and got dinner, cleaned my Humvee up and got it refitted, cleaned the weapon systems, cleaned all the blood out of the Humvee. Cause it was just covered like in blood from where people were in there. Cleaned it all up, got it refit, and then the next day, the next night, drove back up to my base and, packed all the teammates' stuff up, mailed it home, and then I was there for another. That happened September 8, 2009, and I think I got home like December 3rd.
Okay, so you had a lot of work to do, patching things up back there, it sounds like.
Yeah, well, I stayed there and we kept fighting, and then finally, like, they the team made a decision to send me home. They said I was taking unnecessary risk, right? Which, fine. Looking back, like it's probably the best thing ever happened to me. I'm still pissed about it, but what are you gonna do?
Well, I think that we govern on the intent, and it sounds like their intent was to make sure that you weren't.
There was a woman named Katie Kopp who ultimately made the decision. She really good human being, and she's a psychologist, and she ultimately made the decision. Said, "Hey, like you've had enough. You're going home." And I wouldn't speak to her. I wouldn't even speak her name for. I called her in, I think 2018, first time I reached out to her. 2018 or 2019, I was sitting in the IGA parking lot, and I was like, I need to talk to her. And I called her up, and I thanked her. I said, I'm still mad at her.
But she sent you home.
Yeah, but I thanked her because I knew that, like, if she hadn't sent me home, like, I wouldn't have my daughters, right? Like, so, like, we wouldn't be sitting here today probably, right? And I couldn't argue with why she sent me home, but you know what I mean? Like, that's the reality of it. It still isn't the choice. Like, sometimes the best choice for us isn't what we want, right?
Yeah, that's well said. Well, was there any concern that you had? Were you reprimanded for going to a different frequency and doing what you felt you needed to do? There wasn't any fallout of that shit?
Yeah, I didn't know what was going to happen, right?
Who cared, I guess, at that point?
I didn't care, right? Like, I think that every person that walks the planet, like, you have to know what you're going to stand for. Like, where are your lines? Because if you don't fucking put lines in, and it doesn't matter whether you're in combat, it doesn't matter. It could be in any relationship. If you don't know what you're willing to hold the line for, then people are going to walk all over your ass all through life, right? Like, what are your, the ultimate thing that you have to start with is where are the no-goes? Like, what are the non-negotiables in your life?
I don't think it's that simple, though. I mean, I'm with you. You have to know those things.
It
I
is
think
that
a lot of
simple.
people don't have the fortitude to be confrontational to others when they're trying to define the construct of what they're willing to tolerate. Like, you and I will be as abrasive as we want to be because that's how we're wired.
I disagree because, like, you see all these people
Some people don't know how to
protesting
fight.
over this shit. Like, they'll go out. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, people argue over the dumbest shit. Like, and so, like,
Some people just don't know how to argue.
I mean,
though.
look, I mean, dude, look at these people who are willing to fucking hold the line over a mask. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, you look at it like, so I just think that it's, they're only going to hold the line on what somebody else tells them to. And right. And what they don't understand is that like, you can either hold the line that somebody else tells you to, that's in the best,
or know your own.
or know your fucking own.
But once you know that line, you still need the skills to be able to, like, some people are just, there's introverts and extroverts. Some people just don't know how to speak truth to power in any kind, right? So they just don't have that courage to say, hey, listen, stop doing that, right? That's the other part I think is also lacking.
It does take courage. You're right. It takes courage, right? It takes courage for you to decide on how you're going to let somebody talk to your children, right? It takes courage I mean, all of it takes courage, right? Like, nobody ever said, where the world has gotten mixed up is that simple is easy. And it's not. Simple doesn't mean it's easy. And it's simple to come up with your non-negotiables. And it's simple to fight for them, but it doesn't mean it's easy, and it doesn't mean it's going to be comfortable, and it doesn't mean it's popular opinion, right? But again, like, these are all lines of, as much as people think they can be both, you can't. You can't. You can either be liked or you can be trusted, but you can't be both. Nobody's going to look at you as a priority of both.
Yeah.
Right. And like that's the thing. I mean, it's like being a parent, right? Like, you look at, when we talk about leadership, I tell people all the time, if you can't lead your kids, you can't lead anybody.
Yeah.
Right. You're a manager. And so, like, when you look at your kids, it's like, are your kids doing stuff because they believe in the overall reason, or are they doing stuff because they're scared of the consequences?
Of the deterrence. Yeah.
Right. And so, that's a true compass for you to look at, because you automatically have credibility with your kids. You control everything about them for 18 years. So if you can't do it within the confinements of that, you damn sure can't do it in a company.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think there's you said it to my team one time. You're like, if you can't lead yourself, you can't lead others. And if you can't give yourself 100%, because that's the biggest thing too, is you have too many people that are looking for perfection all the time. So their strategies aren't being executed on because they're waiting for a better strategy, or there's just a million excuses, as you know.
Yeah.
Like, same thing. Like, I told you this one day when we were sitting in the sauna, I was like, I don't come hang out with you to feel good and be comfortable. I come to get hard. I mean, I come to be challenged and to be uncomfortable, because I know that will be worth it. It'll make me a better person. If I'm a better person, I'll be a better father, a better whatever. I'll also, as a byproduct of all those things, hopefully become a better leader of my own team, right? But it all starts with those things. And this conversation, like, there's people that are listening that are going to be hearing your story for the first time, but the reality is you're one of those guys that challenges and pushes me all the time now, right? And like, you always end up calling me right at the time in which I need it the most, the ass kicking, or just when I'm like, yeah, man, I'm hard, I'm tough. And then I realize, no, I'm not. I need to go get rebooted again, right? And that constant need to be pushing ourselves is something that you discovered over the course of time, but really you learned more about those things about yourself, it sounds like, as you were a Marine. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I mean, and you're right, but I'll give you a perfect example on the like and trusted thing, right? Like, you don't call me to have fun. Right? Like, if you think of in your Rolodex, like, nobody on this planet, nobody, right? Like,
Dakota's fun. Let's go hang out
nobody,
with it.
like, nobody,
Right.
nobody calls Dakota up to go have fun, or to go to the bar, or to
Chill.
go to chill.
There ain't no chill.
Nobody calls me up to chill.
Right.
And I'm fine with that. Right? Like,
You don't seem like a chiller.
I don't know, because you know what? Because that's not what I'm good at. right? Like I don't add value in chilling, right? I don't know what that means. But that's fine with me, right? Like I know where my realm is. I love like I look at myself as kind of like the garbage man of the world, right? And
Explain
so,
that.
Nobody's ever gonna want me or they're not gonna call me up when things are great. Right? People like they're just not, right? Like
Well, you don't go to the doctor's office when you're healthy.
so you know what I mean? Like I'm really good when shit needs to happen that like people call me up when shit's not good. Right? And that's what they know me in their life. They know me like when you're not like if you were happy all the time and like everything was going fucking great for you.
I don't know shit about that.
Again, I got you right, but like nobody's calling me for that, right? Nobody's like nobody. I don't pick up the phone and somebody's like, "Man, I just want to tell you, like, I'm having the best day fucking ever," right? Like when my phone rings and somebody's calling me, like there's a problem that
I
needs
drew
to be
my
fixed.
truck in the ditch. Help me get it out. Help me
Yeah.
unfuck myself.
Right. And so like I look at myself as even being a firefighter, right? Like there's nobody calling us when things are going great.
Right.
Right. In everything I do, I just know, like, I feel like it's kind of the only time people, it's like again, the garbage man, like the only time you notice what the garbage man does
Is
and
when he doesn't do it.
is when he doesn't do it. Right. And that's where my value comes in. Right. Like that's who I am. And that's like, and I love it. I love it for the simple fact that I know that I can go to bed at night and know that, yeah, like nobody's calling me to hang out, but I know that everybody around me knows for damn sure that they know one person that they can call that's going to help them get out of whatever the fuck is going on with them, right? Which is all I want to be.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, I know you have hundreds of thousands of followers and stuff, but one time we were working out, I was like, listen, man, your impact isn't through the individual contributor model anymore. It's through the guys like us that have also our own sphere of influence within the small orbits that we populate. And that is like, I go there to when I hit a plateau, right? And I come and engage with you when I need to be reminded about, you have a very interesting way of nudging us, from the comfort zone, but in a way that really calls us out and says, hey, listen, if you're going to be these things, everyone wants to be hard. No one wants to really pay the price to be hard, but you want to talk about hard things on hard days and stuff like that. So you kind of have to be that person all the time. Like there was a time where I'm like, man, it's untenable, the lifestyle that you live, because you run so hard and you work out, every day, a couple times a day sometimes. And one day you explained to me, it's not like that in your optics, because you're driven to go help people, so you're trying to stay at the tip of the spear of your health, because the healthier you are, the more people you could help. Right.
And that's ultimately it, right? Like, the impact, the responsibility I have on my shoulders, if I wasn't running that hard, I mean, dude, you're a high fucking performer, right? Like in my world, like I couldn't do what you do, right? And so when I look at guys like you, I mean, it's not like but as well as I do, the higher you climb on the ladder, it's like, I mean, I was telling Caden this and his friend this the other day, you're going to go to college. And if you ever look around at your circle and you're the strongest, fastest, you're the best at everything in your circle, you need to find another circle to push yourself, because you're going to stop, right? And as well as I do, the older we get, the less time we have, the less people we have to interact with, the less choices we have in people, more choices, but less options with people. Because the older we get, like, as well as I do, some people, and they're not trying to be on tip of the spear anymore. They're fine with, maybe being the fucking rear end of the handle, right? And so if you still want to stay on the tip, that tip is getting, I mean, it's took so many slides at it that it's getting really a lot thinner, right? And a lot harder to find people. And especially when you grow at like your rate, like, man, you're running 1,000,000 miles an hour. So not only do you have to have somebody who challenges you, but somebody who is respectable. I mean, all these factors, right? And for me, if I don't sustain that, then I can't help you, right? Then I can't help Eric. Then I can't, like, because the big thing why you don't talk shit back, or like you do, but like why you listen to me, why I can push you is because everything I say to you, you know for a fact I live it.
Yes, every day. And I
Every
see
day,
it.
right? Every
No
day.
excuse.
And so I enjoy being that, and I have to be that because that's where I can help people like you. And that's my influence.
So I think that's what I was trying to say. So your influence will be if you could take. I mean, look, I have a series of people that I'm fortunate enough. I have 3 professional mentors, and then I mentor others. I think mentoring and being mentored is really important to everybody. I mean, you have to have someone that still pushes you. I'm sure you run in some really tight circles with a lot of high speed, low drag individuals that have to keep. For you to be able to probably stay within their orbit, you got to be in your tip of your game all the time, probably, right? And I get that. I actually respect that a lot. How, we become a product of that environment, so we're really particular in how we isolate and insulate ourselves from anything that could erode from those things that we're trying to do. Like, I've had some major profound changes in my life in the last 30, 60, 90 due to the circumstances in my life, as you know, and I found a lot of those things that I needed where the pain was, and I found the pain in hanging out with you in one of those workout environments, or sitting in your cold plunge, or like those are miserable experiences. But I know, like this morning when I left your place, my son was working out with us, and he's like, I wish I could do that every day. And I'm like, well, I wish I could. I'm going to travel.
Yeah,
you travel.
Yeah, we do.
You're twice as busy as I do, which is why I'm like, I got nothing to say, because I can't complain about not doing it, because you still probably, even on your professional level, you have X amount of companies. We're going to talk about those, but like, there's a reason, there's an excuse for every one of us, right? It's just a decision, right? And I think spending time with you and you've spent a lot of time with my team over the course of months, right? And just the way that you would drop these little things on there, it's intentional, it's deliberate, and it's necessary, right? And I think that there should be. Thank God there's people like y'all out there that are just staying hard every day and reminding us to, like you said something to me the day when we were talking about working on a Sunday. And the reality is, like, I barely could work out with you. Like, I could barely walk that morning when I woke up, right?
Yeah.
So I had to go walk like almost 4 miles on a straight road without hills, just to get my biomechanics to work right, because I was doing things with you I've never done before. And my body was like, not today, So I remember, like, all these little things that happen. I'm like, I have to remember, no matter how tough I am and how far I think I've come, it's the only day that matters is today. And I could never be happy today with the man I was yesterday, right? And being around those people at Dark 30. So when my son and I are driving away this morning, and he's like, that was awesome. I'm like, what will be awesome is when I could hang with you for every one of those workouts, and I don't have to fall back on because right now I'm modifying it. Yeah. But it's a reminder that the people that work for me, they should probably not only expect and demand, but they deserve to have a leader that's willing to wake up at Dark 30 when it sucks.
They're worthy of it.
And I have an amazing team that pushes it, but for the same reason, like I don't have the luxury of saying too much shit to you because of all of the circumstances in your life. But for me, I need to make sure that my team, I'm worthy enough that morning to be able to lead such talented people.
Yeah, and watching, I gotta be honest, man, like I envied, working out with you and your son this morning. I just, like, I gotta be honest, like it was, man, I'll never forget. I was running. You two were coming down the road. Or no, I came out. You two were in front of me.
And I was talking shit. I said, "Go catch that fat ass."
Yeah. And man, it was just really badass to see that, like, not only can your son see that you're still getting after it, but the fact that you get to witness that him becoming a man and, like, being able to carry on that sword. Yeah. And right, like at the point that you can't carry it anymore, whenever that happens, that he's still getting harder and he's still digging, and he's seeing the value in A, getting up, B, getting out there and getting after it, You know what I mean? And like
When no one's making.
when no one's making, right? And like
There's no external motivation to those
No.
things. That's got to be 100% internal. You're driven.
yeah, and you know, and like just like just like being able to watch, you know, the man that's gonna carry on your last name.
Sure.
Like it was such like for me, I like that was the part that I pulled away from this entire morning
It was awesome.
was when I watched both of you all running shoulder to shoulder down the road, and I was
Yeah.
like, man, like if I had my phone on me, like like that would have been a damn picture, right? Because it's like that's what it's supposed to be about, right? Like not only yeah, there's a workout there, I got it right, but like
Nah, but think about this: when you were a Marine, when you were an E nothing, how mind blowing would it have been to wake up knowing that? I mean, he's going to be a knob at the Citadel, right? So he plans on going in the military. He's asking you questions about sniper and stuff. Can you imagine working out with a Medal of Honor recipient when you were getting ready to go into whatever, Marine Corps, or even when you were in? I mean, that's a huge privilege. It's a privilege for me. It's an honor. I don't take that lightly. That's why I also don't call you and ask you for shit, because I know that you're a celebrity in this industry, in this space, and that you're just being pulled out from everybody. And you're such a selfless person that you almost have to have gatekeepers to protect you from yourself, or you'll just give away everything about yourself. Not literally, but I mean, you want to selflessly help so many people that part is infectious. That's why I want to be around it, because I want to do the same.
But you want to know what I hope he took away from it?
My son?
Your son was that, yeah, you can get a Medal of Honor, but as long as you still have air going in and out of your lungs, you still have a responsibility to do something every day to make yourself better, to not put that sword down, and for you to be able to be capable to continue to go out and to earn that title of whatever is important to you, no matter whether you've got 10 Medal of Honors or you don't have any. It ain't done. Right?
Every day's a gift.
Every day's a gift, and you better make the most out of it, right? And it's just it's awesome, right? And and in the gym, the gym that I built, like the rules to it are like I don't care how much weight anybody does. Like nobody's in there seeing who does the most weight. Nobody's in there seeing who's the fastest. Like the reality that people have got to figure out is they think that they're in competition with everybody else, and it's not. It's like you're in competition with that man that you see in the mirror, that woman you see in the mirror, like of being 1% better every single day. And that's what the gym's about. The gym is that we all go up there. The workouts aren't crazy, right? Like, I mean, you look at it, like, have you looked at any of the workouts and been like initially thinking about it?
No, I don't even bother looking at them. I'm just like, just to get it done with.
Let's just get it done with. Because guess what? It's the same thing in life. The work is the work.
It is.
No matter what. And guess what? Like either you do, and like you haven't seen this yet because like, thank God you have stuck through and done every rep that needed to be done. But like, if you don't finish the work, then I'll finish it, because you know what? Like what you didn't do, because in my mind, like that is what the gym, it's like the gym of life. And like, whatever we set out to do, we're going to do. And whatever you don't do or somebody else in there doesn't do or doesn't finish, we have to finish, because that's the way it is in life. And like that, like, and that's good, because guess what? When that person can't finish the workout that we set out to do, and they watch us finish it for them, their reps, then they'll know why they need to get stronger. And it's the same thing in life, that if you aren't doing your part, what you set out to do, somebody's going to have to pick up that slack. The work is the work, and it has to get done. And that's what the gym is about. And I tell people, like, the only requirement you have is that you leave better than you came in there, and you come there and you get better, and that's it, right?
And try to find a way to come back.
And come back.
Just showing up. Consistency is the biggest trick to anything, right?
Just showing up. Just showing up is the majority of the battle.
Someone was asking me something, I'm like, don't look at Dakota. I said, if I had to give him a title, he'd be a blacksmith. He's just in there banging away, with a hammer and an anvil on everybody all day, making them all go be a better CEO, go be a better father, go be a better husband, go be a better brother, go be a better friend. And I'm like, it doesn't matter what happens. You're just going to go into this building and you're going to come out a better person. You just know that it's not going to be comfortable. Yeah. But we could all pay and suffer a short-term inconvenience for a long-term gain like that. But
you think about it, man. the people who are unhealthy, they're not comfortable either. Like you just have to decide, right? The reality of life is like, you can be out of shape, you can feel like shit, you can be tired all the time, and that's miserable too. Or you can go work out for an hour a day and you can try to eat healthier and it's less miserable and at least you get to do it on the terms that you want to do it on, right? And it's like you pick your, like, no matter what. No, life is not easy. Like, let's just go ahead and say it. Life is hard.
Warfare.
Life is hard. And so it's like, but do you want to pick your hard, or do you want, life to pick it for you, right? And like and you're right. What you said, it like a blacksmith. Like I don't care like you've seen who, like, you've got Don in there. I mean, you got different people in there who have different goals, and I don't care what your goals are, right? I want to help you be what you want to be, and that's what it's about. And
That's
I believe
leadership.
it starts there. Like, man, if I can provide a place where you come in and like you leave and you're excited and you're like, man, I got this out of the way. I've done my part, right? I made you better, and I trust that if I make you better, you're going to make a shit ton of people better.
That's my duty and responsibility. That's why I have to be there. So I owe it to them to be there.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I think for you took it another level, right? So you did this gym, and then you started, what's the name of your brand for those that haven't heard?
Own the Dash.
So listen to me. That was the thing that probably caught my attention the most.
Yeah.
And remember, I was telling him, like, I want to make sure, like, at some point you and I have talked to where when you build out that village that you're going to have for all the leadership things, like, everyone in this industry can find value in going and spending a day, 2 days there with their teams, off sites, learning how to become a stronger influence over your own leadership teams or yourself, right? And everything that you need to be immersed in to come out as a better person physically and emotionally and mentally is there, right? And over the course of time, we're going to do those things. The Own the Dash is the part that really transcended more for me because it was relevant to my own cancer one day when you're like, this is the year I'm born. So explain to people what that thing is, because that dash is the defining moment for everything.
So, I always give credit. Linda Ellis wrote this poem. It's called The Dash. And she talks about how she stood at the funeral of a friend and read off, what first comes the date on the tombstone. It's the beginning to the end. And, both the dates that are on your last living legacy, a tombstone, are the only 2 days in your life that are less than 24 hours. And they are both the 2 days you have zero control of. And what really matters is that dash in between. And, you think about it, man, the thing about in life, and my biggest failure in life.
Hold on, I'm listening.
My biggest failure in life, was September 8, 2009. Right, like
you didn't challenge enough. You're saying?
No, I mean, look, my whole team died. Right, like my whole team was killed, and so a lot of people look at it like, oh well. And it makes me so mad. Like, and I refuse to let anybody change the narrative. I is the biggest failure in my life. Like, I went in there to get my teammates out alive and to save them, and my teammates died. And like, you can get people who are like, well, you're not the one that shot them. Well, you're right. You're right. But when we're on you look at a football team or a wrestling match, whatever, right? Like, say a football team, like, I don't have to be the one that threw the interception that lost, but we still fucking lost.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing for me that day. I watched the stakes be as high as they could be and completely lost. And, but it's good, right? Because it taught me more about, like, it's why I am the way I am today, right? It's, everything about me came from that day, right? Like, the person that I am today is literally built based off that day. The reason I care about people so much came from that day, right? The reason I push so hard came from that day. Because I know what that fucking loss can feel like.
Mm-hmm.
And, so, with that came, the dash, right? Like that's why, I've been to a ton of funerals. And it really made sense to me. And so for me, like I look at people, people go through life and they focus on both of those days they have no control on. It controls their whole life, right? Everybody's scared to die and they celebrate their birthday every year, right? Like you look, nothing else.
Yeah.
And so it's like, to me, own the dash. Like you can't decide
What's the point? What's the purpose?
It's like, what is your purpose, right? Like live your life. Like you can't decide, you have no control over how long that dash is going to be, but you can decide what it looks like. And the most important thing that she said in the poem that really made sense to me was, it's not about the cars. It's not about the cash. It's not about any of that. It's about, how you lived and how you loved and how you lived out your dash. And so it's about, look, nobody gets up at a funeral, right? Like every day we are writing our eulogy when we come in contact with people. And what are they going to say about you? What do you think they should say about you when you pass away? What do you want people to remember you as? Because they're going to remember you. Maybe they won't. But what do you want them to remember you as? Do you want them to remember you as, do you have a shit ton of money? Because nobody gives a shit about that.
Yeah, no one cares.
Or do you want it to be the impact that you had on like, hey,
this many lives.
This dude, man, we had a great time. This dude was always happy. This dude was a guy I could always call up. This person was always there for me. Or I remember, nobody gets up there at the eulogy and talks and says, man, I really loved, I loved all those millions of dollars he had, and blah, blah. They don't give a shit about that, right? Like they get up there and they talk about the times that you were there for them, right?
How you made them feel.
And that's what Own the Dash is. And Own the Dash is, it's about people just.
It's a movement. It's a call to action. It feels like to me. It made me really think twice about like I did a lot of things and did a lot of races and tried to maintain a certain standard of health and thought I was dialed in. And then I was like, way too comfortable again. It's time to go own that. And every time that you and I get down and dirty, it's when I realize I've hit a plateau in my life. I'm like, time to fucking step it up again. What was once hard is no longer hard. Time to go make things hard again. And as a byproduct of every one of those incremental changes that you've helped me drive through, I've been able to elevate others around me too. People on my team. It's made me a better whatever. And as a byproduct of that, the ripple effects have been felt by those. So your impact and your legacy isn't measured on how many followers you have. And I know you have millions, but it's going to be based on how many other of us as you can go create that could have an impact on carrying on your movement and owning the dash and inspiring those that work for us to own that dash.